Good morning, grade 8. We're going to look at the theorem of Pythagoras. It is a wonderful theorem, and it is all to do with triangles, but not just any triangle. It should be a right-angled triangle. So very, very important. We only work with triangles that has a 90-degree angle in it. This was taken from Wikipedia. It says Pythagoras was a famous Greek mathematician and philosopher. He is known best for the proof of the important Pythagoras theorem or Pythagorean theorem, which is about a right-angled triangle. He started a group of mathematicians called the Pythagoreans who worshipped numbers and lived like monks. He had an influence on Plato. Okay, so very important, it has to have a 90 degrees. So it's all triangles that has a 90-degree angle in them. And what he discovered is that if you have two lengths of that triangle, that you don't have to measure the third one, is that you can find it mathematically. So again, if you've got two lengths of a right-angled triangle, you can find the third one by using his theorem. Okay, so like the guy in the previous video explained, he said that Pythagoras found that if you take the two shorter sides of the 90-degree angle or the 90-degree triangle, so the two shorter sides touching the 90-degree, squared will always give you the hypotenuse squared. What is the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is the length of the triangle, the side that is opposite the 90-degree angle. Okay, so he states, if you look over here, that if you take the two shorter sides of the triangle, which is indicated here as A and B, and A and B, they should have actually indicated a 90-degree over there in between A and B. But if you take A squared plus the length of B squared will give you the hypotenuse squared. Okay, and again, the hypotenuse is the angle or the side opposite the 90-degree angle. Okay, so he said if you have two sides of a right-angled triangle, you can find the third one by using the theorem of Pythagoras. Now, please remember that we are still busy with geometry and that we also still have a statement and a reason. And the reason is always Pythagoras. So please, you cannot just assume that the teacher or whoever is busy marking your work knows what you're busy with. So whenever you are using the Pythagoras theorem, you have to write as your reason Pythagoras. Okay, so if you look at the left-hand side triangle, the two values, the two lengths that has been given is 3 and 4. Those are the two shorter sides, and those two added together squared will give you the hypotenuse squared. Then we can also ask you it in another way, where we give you the hypotenuse and another length of the side of the triangle. Then, please remember, if you look at the middle triangle, the middle column, you will then have 3 squared plus question mark squared will give you 5 squared. So another way of working it backwards is if you take the hypotenuse, the blue line, and you say 5 squared minus the 3 squared will give you g squared or the question mark squared. Okay, same with the last one. So they don't always have to give you, and those we see as the harder ones, they don't give you the two sides touching the 90 degrees. They give you the hypotenuse and another side. So immediately if you have the hypotenuse, if you get the hypotenuse, please remember it's hypotenuse minus, so hypotenuse squared minus the length of another side squared will give you the other missing leg touching the 90 degrees. I hope that makes sense. Let's just quickly have a look at the next slideshow. Okay, so let's have a look at example 1. They say to calculate the length of AB. So if you look at AB, what is AB? Is AB the hypotenuse, or is AB a length of the two sides touching the 90 degrees? So the two, I always call them the two legs touching the 90 degrees, has been given. Can you see that? And they're asking you to work out the hypotenuse AB. Okay, so in that case, if you've got the two sides touching the 90 degrees, you're going to work with 6 squared plus 8 squared will give you AB squared. Okay, so if you substitute there, 6 squared is 36 plus 64 is equal to 100. But now, how do you get a square away? By square rooting your answer. So remember, you are left with AB squared is equal to 100. How do you get just AB alone? By square rooting AB squared. Okay, and square rooting the AB squared, that will cancel out and you will be left with AB. But what you do on the left-hand side, you have to do on the right-hand side. So the square root of 100 is then 10. So AB's length is 10 centimeters. Okay, for example 2, can you see, if you just look at your picture, that the hypotenuse has been given, the side opposite the 90 degree. Can you follow? The 90 degree opposite that you will see is the 9 centimeters. 9 centimeters is the hypotenuse. So as soon as you've got the hypotenuse and one of the legs touching the 90 degree has been asked, then you're going to do the minus sum. So you're going to look hypotenuse squared minus one of the other legs squared will give you xy squared. Okay, so let's have a look at the sum. 9 squared is equal to, 9 squared minus 4 squared will give you xy squared. 9 squared is 81. 81 minus 36 gives you 65. Now please remember, you don't just have the answer is 65. You've got the answer at the moment as xy squared is 65. But we don't want xy squared. We want just xy's value, xy's length. So how do you take the square away? By square rooting the xy squared, and that will cancel out the square and the square root. But what you do on the one side, you have to do on the other side. So square root of 65 is, you can see there that they've actually worked it out as 8.06, but you could have just left your answer as the square root of 65. Okay, you are allowed to use your calculators with geometry. So if you have your calculator, you might as well just do it. So xy is equal to 8.06, and that is the length of xy. Okay, I hope that makes sense. The first set of questions that you're going to do for today is just where they ask you to find the hypotenuse. So it's the easier type of Pythagoras, where you have the two legs touching the 90 degrees and they're asking you to find the hypotenuse. Tomorrow's work is where they will give you the hypotenuse and a leg, and they ask you to find the other leg. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Enjoy your day. Thanks, grade 8s.